Alright, so I'm going to be doing a video about why me and a few other people filed the suit against Lourdes Schwartz. We had formed a filing cadre, about 7 or 8 of us, who had been rubbed the wrong way by the aggressive tactics that Lourdes is known to employ. And when I say known to employ, you can ask people who never warmed at all to Hyungjanim, who live in Pennsylvania, who dealt with her before. I don't feel like calling them out by name, but there were, there's plenty of stories because she's willing to do certain things for, to fulfill her goals. And I'm not going to go into that. If you don't know, you don't know. But if you know, you know. And many of them, those tactics that she uses are disrespectful. She uses a guilt-shaming tactic, and that works on some people. Oh, don't you love me? This kind of thing. People fail to realize that their love belongs to them, not her. And she should not be the subject of their love, but she's able to summon, in the name of their own acts of love, in the name of their love, she's able to summon their love by accusing them of not having any. That is a typical leftist tactic. That's why you have the migrants in Europe taking over Europe, because Europe is guilted into proving that they can love the migrants. Gay marriage was passed by the same tactic. Anyway, she's got a bag of tactics, and somebody like me, instead of playing into it, I see through it, and when I see through it, I'm insulted. I can't say that I'm sorry about being wise enough to see what's being done to me. I'm not. But I become one of those rare people who can sort of like nullify what she's doing, and she gets a little disturbed that, her tricks don't work on everybody, and then so I become of interest to her, and then she seemed to make it her business to try to get me wrapped around her finger, or I don't know, some code that she was trying to crack to figure out how to manipulate me. And in the beginning, I had a big brother's attitude towards it, because I felt that my life of gratitude for the blessing was beyond hers. And so I wouldn't have sued. I had forgiven her for a few things that she had done to me. Once I sat down with her, me and my wife, for 4 hours, explaining the way that me and my wife live. We're not part of the church, we're not meritocratic people, this kind of thing. And she wrote down all the notes, and she spun it, and she was online trivializing my motives the same night. I would never sit down for 4 hours with somebody who was going to turn around and trivialize my stated motives and spin it within an 8-hour period. My wife was shocked. My wife was shocked that she didn't respond to our sincerity. Okay, anyway. So, Jesus taught me, before I even came to the Unification Church, Jesus taught me that, love your enemy. And I realized some things about the human condition through Jesus, through the red letters in the Bible, and I was able to bring myself to reconcile with an enemy of mine, a few enemies of mine. There was an incident where one of my best friends swiped my girlfriend right out from under me, got her pregnant, and this kind of thing. And I took them out for dinner to wish them well on their journey. But that's because, Jesus had already started to touch me and move me. And, this is before I joined the Unification Church. So, I definitely practiced, just leaving Lourdes alone. But I can't help but say that for some reason she seemed to be hunting me, like trying to figure out how to get me in her employ one way or the other, even after I stated clearly how I feel about certain projects and certain motives, certain outdated, restorational, sensational, or external motives for projects I don't want to participate in. And many of you who know what I'm talking about, the events-driven lifestyle of, you know, sowing into one event after another event after another event, and spending yourself to where you lose the more important part of your life, including blessed families themselves being de-emphasized and the plight of blessed children being de-emphasized. So after the Unification Church debacle, I didn't want to fall into that again, and of course she was unable to diagnose that she was still inside of that mindset. So I was unable to, you know, convict her that, well, her mindset itself is part of the problem that I had learned to deal with. Okay, so I'm laughing because I still think it's, I don't want to say it's cute, but it's kind of like I've been there and done that, you know? So anyway, this is what it was like for me dealing with her. All the while, I'm friends with Robert Pickell, who, you know, later I learned he's kind of like he's got a bone to pick with her. He's kind of like a Captain Ahab, and she's the white whale. And I'm not saying he's not justified. He is, but, you know, his ability to let it go is not equivalent to mine. And, you know, I'm loving and open towards him too. But that's the chemistry. All right, so I'm just going to go through this list. When it finally crescendoed into the idea of filing a suit against her, what the motives were, okay? Okay, why I filed. Okay, so since I've been saying for years, you can ask some of my friends, one of the pastors, assistant pastors of LA, George Gazakis, I've been his friend. We worked in CARP together for many, many years, and we've been friends for many, many years. And he would tell you that I spent years calling church leaders archangel because of the qualities that they have. H1 came along in 2001, and he said that the church leadership had an archangelic culture, okay? And then Hyunjin came to Pennsylvania saying the same thing about the people that squeezed him out, the people who were crowding his mother. So there is an archangelic spirit in the church, and Hyunjin was sermonizing about that in 2016 when he said that in the microcosm, the church patron or the church goer or the church supporter is in the position of citizen or child of God, while the church official is in the position of servant or you know, archangel position, or the position of government, and government should serve the citizens, should serve the people, and not the other way around. And back then he was talking about upside down kingdom. Well, this was not a strange concept to me at all, and there's a lot of theological backstory to why I was piqued by Hyunjin sermons back then. And my theology tracks all the way back to the Garden of Eden, where you had this meritocratic entity, this hierarchical entity. Father said that the angel is not a pair system entity. It's an individual over another individual over another, you know, a hierarchical vertical pipeline type of entity. And the original system of humans is a pair system. So you had this hierarchical system that existed right up until the time that Adam reached the top of the growth stage. And then Adam realizes that he really doesn't have to agree with everything that the angel is putting down. In fact, the minute God said, you are the Lord, or told him to have dominion, we know that Lucifer started to feel like the entire pyramid was being replaced, or he was being replaced as the head of the pyramid, and he became envious, and he toppled Adam's burgeoning reign. You know, so at its inception, he killed the baby humanity, right? He killed humanity right at its birth, true humanity right at its birth. And so this offense being taken by the archangel was passed into the hearts of the Pharisees and John the Baptist. And so when the second Adam came, the meritocratic hierarchical entities felt offended, and they murdered the Son of God. When the third Adam came in 1945, the people who were prepared by God to recognize and work with and support True Father, namely Ho Bin Ho and Baek Moon Kim, these Christians felt similar feelings, couldn't overcome again. And as the principle says, if he's rejected when he returns, he will have to go to John the Baptist route. So Father was character assassinated, which is a form of murder. So Father being character assassinated or murdered or socially murdered, formed another church to rebuild what was now a lost foundation. The people who held the foundation did not pass the foundation over to Father. So the foundation needed to be rebuilt. And if you haven't noticed by now, the solution to the original problem that happened in the mind of the original, archangel, isn't solved yet. Even though the Unification Church exists to rebuild the lost foundation, it isn't solved yet. So the first Israel produced Pharisees who failed. The second Israel produced Baekmun Kim Hoban Ho, spiritual Christians and Orthodox Christians who failed. And then Father created a third Israel called the Unification Church within what he later called the third Adam's realm. And he said that the third Adam's realm is a realm which still required indemnity. You'll find this in the speech in October 1999 about the fourth Adam's realm. So the third Adam's realm still required indemnity. If you know anything about indemnity, you know that the person holding the foundation has to give it over or else it's undone. So if the Unificationists were the third Israel who recreated the foundation, then it's very important that when Father steps into the fourth Adam's realm and changes things, as he did post-1992, that they follow. As he becomes a different Adam, and he, basically changes a lot, that they follow. Well, my contention is this, that instead of following Father, people clung to the past. And the Divine Principle talks about old wineskins and such. Well, what happened is the fourth Adams are us, but we're not used to valuing ourselves to that high degree or trusting ourselves to that high degree, because trusting yourself as a part of Restoration era or the realm of the third Adam, trusting yourself is frowned upon because you might disunite with your able figure, which is a bad condition in that era. So if you're used to not believing in yourself and you're only believing in the so-called able figure, that may be a hard thing to shake. So people who come later who are not hardened in that belief system will be able to participate in the next era. And Father talked about that. Father said, now is the time where Christianity can no longer persecute us. From now on, older members will persecute newer members. Well, my entire church life is a manifestation of that. If you third Adam-hearted people want to accuse me of not knowing how to take it, you'd first have to adopt the heart of a fourth Adamic person, someone who entered the movement as a prepared person, prepared for the fourth Adam's realm. You first have to walk in those moccasins before you tell me that I didn't take the assault of this old mindset demonizing me. Now, being a fourth Adam person, I'm not trying to create a hierarchy. I'm not trying to lead people in one way or the other through some organization where I become the new so-called able figure, top able figure, who is worshipped. Fourth Adamic person, me being one of them, you realize that it's not a zero-sum game. Love is not a zero-sum game like a pyramid. A pyramid only has a small amount of spaces at the top. Okay? People who have enough ambition have enough fight and maybe even enough cruelty to step on enough people or thwart enough people in their competing for those top positions. But fourth Adam's realm is a realm of complete liberation where everyone can occupy the original top position of child of God and be blessed and have a blessed couple which is at the level adjacent to the couple of true parents. But hierarchical people have a problem conceiving that, believing it. If they're hardened in giving up or forfeiting their inspirations for the commands of the so-called able figure, they find it it's hard. It's almost like walking around naked, that they don't have a say-so from their so-called able figure. And this is why Father had talked about the fact that new people could actually fly. And so, you know, I could give more backstory about that, but I'm not. I'm just trying to let you know that I've never really gelled, and it's because I was spiritually born into this movement in 1996, well after the start of the completed Testament era. Okay? So from that position, why did I file the suit? Because I knew that history needed a condition, and a condition where the children of Adam, not Adam, Father had Gorbachev and Kim Il-sung, they bowed down to Father in the early 90s. Okay, and then the Berlin Wall came down because those two figures, Gorbachev and Kim Il-sung, represented world-level Cain. So Father had a foundation now to assume the position of parent. And as a parent of humans, of true humans, he doesn't continue to run a hierarchy. He doesn't continue to center on a hierarchical structure. He decentralizes because that's the original design of the human heart. Each person has a direct relationship with God. So Father starts to decentralize, and here are some of the decentralizing things that Father opened up. One, conscience is higher than God and parents. So if you don't know what that means, if you don't know what kind of encouragement that is to the individual holding the conscience, then I can't help you. But that is a very decentralizing concept. The next concept, home church, is nobody controls your home church except you and your wife. You just have to figure out how to have hundoke, invite people to hundoke, bless your children, bless your family members, and grow your tribe. There's no church pastor to come in and tell you how to do it, but that was a very decentralizing maneuver. Another decentralizing maneuver is to put the conviction in not only us, but in all of mankind, that we hold the keys to the kingdom of heaven, because he said the key, or the dividing line between heaven and hell, is the sexual organ. So he spoke very clearly about how we have the power to actually determine the destiny of the entire planet. The sexual organ is that kind of central cosmic thing. And making us clear about it makes us more like owners who actually realize we have our hands on the steering wheel of the cosmos. Of course, that steering wheel is a penis and vagina, but anyway, Father gave clear absolute sex teaching at that time. Very explicit absolute sex teaching at that time. And I recall people, I heard that Kwok resisted Father about the absolute sex. I heard that church leaders called up the webmasters and asked them to remove the speeches that were liberating all his members from their pyramids, their fiefdoms, their little organizations and programs that they ran. Because once the members found out that conscience is higher than parents, conscience is higher than leader, conscience is higher than teacher, then sometimes those members' consciences were telling them they really need to pay attention to something else and change their life, right? So that was devastating to some of these programs, or maybe it was feared to bring devastation. These programs, many of these programs disappeared anyway, but you know, it was fought against. So what can I say? I thought that when Father got victory over the Archangel and said that we're the ones who have to bring, the Divine Principle says we're the ones who have to bring the final surrender. So I thought, well, if this clearly hierarchical woman who's a part of the church hierarchy, she's clearly on the side of government, she's guilty of abusing people, it's a slam dunk case. Anybody who reads the court filing will see that. There were 7 other files being prepared where you could see that as well. But if she were brought to the point where she could set a condition where she puts herself in a proper position, then that would be a good thing for humanity. So that's why I thought having her fired is not necessary, that an apology would suffice, and as a condition of bowing to the citizenship, okay, as a public official. So yeah, that's the first reason. Second reason, it was a win-win situation because Hyung-jin could get a test case out of the Constitution. Later on, Hyung-jin said that he got a REMA, numbers 33, and he said that this would be a good thing. So we were trying to provide this test case for the Constitution because we want to help father-son. And he seemed to be saying that the Constitution, well, he clearly said that the Constitution was active now. It's not for the future. He said it was active now at that time. And we clearly asked him, is it active now? Because if he would have said no, we probably wouldn't have used it in the complaint, okay? Let's see, so to provide a test case. Okay, another thing Hyung-jin said in April, I think it was towards the end of April, maybe like April 20 to April 20 something, in one of his King's reports, he said, if you see a public official doing something wrong and you don't do anything about it, you're enabling political Satan. So when I asked him about that, I told him I was going to forgive Lourdes as I always had done up until that point. But when I heard his sermon or his talk about enabling political Satan, I'm having second thoughts about rehashing my tactic with Lourdes. So he shouts out to me, it's just the two of us there in the foyer of the church again, and he says, "You can't run! You can't run!" So that sort of sealed it for me. That gave me sort of like the emotional push to be like, okay, I'm going to do this, because it really was a labor of love. It certainly was not a labor of resentment, because I really have more pity for Lourdes than anything, and that's actually on record in church email filings. I'm telling her what I really think about her, and she can't hear it. So, and I pity her husband and her kids, that she measures herself according to her works instead of, that was my concern for her, that she didn't fully, breathe in the gift that is the blessing. Anyway, I didn't have to, press against this woman because she's not my responsibility. But when Hyung-jin says, "You can't run," it kind of gives me this emotional push. And this kind of dovetails with, some of the other guys, Robert Pikel's motivation. Now, let me see. I just want to make sense of this, make sure I'm not saying things twice. All right. So anyway, to provide a test case. Third, responsibility to squash political Satan. I just covered that. I didn't need to sue because of Jesus. Okay, yeah, I told you I didn't need to sue. I don't need to go over that. Okay, to provide other formal complaints. Okay, back in January of 2017, we had been talking to Hyung-jin, me and Robert had been talking to Hyung-jin again about something else that she did, because she's relentless. Anyway, so Hyung-jin, he sits back in his chair and he thinks for a minute. He's like really honoring the topic, honoring our question, and he says, I don't know, it's like we've talked to Cook Jin-im, and he says she does a lot of work, and you'd have to replace her with 4 people because she does so much work and this kind of thing. And anyway, so he says, you know what? If more people file formal complaints like this one brother who filed a complaint against her earlier, but if more people filed complaints like that, Cook Jin-im would have to take notice of the impact she's having. So why did we file? Why did we form a filing cadre? We formed a filing cadre because Hyung-jin said that. We formed a group of 7 or 8 people. I can't remember if it was 7 or 8. We formed a group of 7 or 8 people who were each stonewalled or abused by her. And once these people found out that Hyung-jin said that, they were like, oh yeah, well, okay, yeah, I could make it formal. So we were trying to figure out together how to do this. And since I had a flood of screenshots sent to me by friends on the internet, they thought, okay, well, we'll work with Jamal's evidence first. Let's do Jamal's case first. But they had cases of their own against the same person. Okay, so that fourth reason was Okay, the fifth reason was to provide other formal complaints. The sixth reason, to strengthen brothers and sisters who have no fight against grotesquely hierarchical church leaders. They don't know how to deal with it. They always comply because, you know, it's the quickest way to quote-unquote peace. But compliance is also the quickest way to getting right back down in the lower position underneath somebody that is not looking out for your tribal messiahship and is not looking out for your family and its best interests and is not looking out for your psychology, which has to learn to trust and grow in a personal direct relationship with God, right? So that entity is concerned about usually, you know, its responsibilities, its events, and then it's going to report your work to his higher angel, which, you know, angels think their father is the top angel. That's how they think, because everybody's an angel from their point of view. So they're going to report to the top angel that they succeeded in doing this project, and you help them, you know. But anyway, that's your life. Your life is doing these projects within this limited framework. And your personal relationship with God, your personal conviction that God is guiding you to go anywhere God might be guiding you in the world, to go away from the church even. You hardly can ever hear that or hear any encouragement from an archangel to follow that voice. Okay, so to strengthen brothers and sisters that have no fight. So if I had gotten that apology, I could have only felt really good for people who thought that, oh, it's no use. It's no use. Yes, I see problems in the church, but it's no use. You know, I wanted them to be emboldened. I really do think that when people are free, God has more opportunity to bring more variety into the collective conversation, more experience into the collective conversation. Everybody would take their own risks, and it would be a numbers game, and we could cross-fertilize and, you know, share best practices. I really do. That's what freedom looks like. Okay, so I wanted, for me personally, brothers and sisters, to have that. All right, so in the filing cadre, I'll tell you who was in the filing cadre in a later video. Okay, but this video is why we were filing, okay? And some of why I personally was filing, all right? And none of it had anything to do with resentment towards Lourdes Schwartz. It had to do with a pining. For me personally, it had to do with a yearning that I feel for people to be liberated. And you know, Father said the most important thing in the family pledge. You know, the family pledge says, I, the owner of Chanukuk, right? Owner of Chanukuk. Father said the most important word in that entire document is the word liberation. So people cannot be liberated when they feel obligated in the hierarchical structure. And that is why churches are going to disappear, just like Father said, because tell me a church that's trying to champion its own decentralization. It's oxymoronic. You can't have a centralized decentralization. And about this, Father said the nation cannot do it. The world cannot do it. Only the individual can go this path, the path of liberated authority. Okay? So you can't, the archangel, Adam cannot take the step into his freedom and autonomy and authority because the archangel taught him how to do it. So chew on that for a while and you realize the conflict between the fourth Adam's era and the third Adam's era. And that's where my mind is. And, you know, I'm sorry, this may cause some of you turmoil. I can only imagine why. But for some of you, you've been thinking like this already. And Godspeed. All right.